My parents forced my twin sister and me to live as one person for 15 years. Dad kept a spreadsheet ranking which daughter was more useful to keep. Mom said, "You always need there to be a problem." I didn't argue. At the final ceremony, I brought out the fourth chair, and the color drained from my mother's face. My name is Sophie. I'm 18. I live with my parents in a 3-bedroom house on a quiet street where everyone thinks they know us. My sister is also 18. We were born 7 minutes apart, in the same house, and only one of us has a birth certificate that admits it. Our mother decided, long before she was pregnant, that she was meant to raise one perfect daughter. When the ultrasound showed twins, she stopped telling people she was pregnant. When we came home from the hospital, only one of us came home on paper. My sister's birth record was filed under a cousin's name, a cousin who had moved out of state and never came to check. The certificate was never activated. To the government, my sister has never existed. There is one baby in every photo in our family album, and the hospital bracelet in the baby book has been laminated with only one name showing. I've held that bracelet. The cut is clean. When I was 3, the official Sophie got pneumonia and almost didn't make it. That's when the switching started. Our mother could not stand the thought of the wrong daughter being the one to disappear, so from the hospital parking lot she made a rule. One of us in public. One of us in the back room. Rotate as needed. The switches happened every 3 to 6 months, in the basement, at the card table, under the bare bulb. Clothes came off. Clothes went on. Haircuts got adjusted in the kitchen that night so the teacher at school wouldn't notice. The sister going off rotation slept in the crawlspace bedroom behind the water heater. Most people would not find that door if they stood 2 feet from it. We learned each other's homework, each other's friends, each other's small scars. And we kept a notebook black marbled cover, the cheap composition kind, $1.29 at the drugstore. We hid it under a loose brick in the basement wall. 3rd brick from the bottom. Left of the fuse box. Every switch, we updated each other. What Sophie ate that week. Who Sophie talked to. What Sophie said at dinner when Mom asked something sharp. 14 notebooks stacked under that brick. My sister has told me more than once that she thinks Mom has read some of them. I've always told her no. I should have listened. The ceremony kept us alive until the day it became the last one. 6 weeks before the basement night, my parents were out at a firm dinner, my sister was in the crawl space, and I was on rotation that week. Sophie, doing homework at the kitchen table. My father's work laptop was open on the dining room counter. He never left it open. He carried it around the house the way other people carried their keys. I looked at it for a full minute before I sat down. The screen was on the File Explorer. One folder was highlighted. No name, just a date. The date I was born. I opened it. The first document was a life insurance policy. My father as policyholder, and 2 daughters listed as the insured. 2, my legal name on top. Under it, a second name. My sister's real name, the one we only ever used in the journals, the one she had never been allowed to write on anything. Typed clean, with a social security number I had never seen before. Second document. Another policy. Newer, issued 3 years ago. Same 2 names. Bigger payout. Third document. A spreadsheet called projections. 2 columns, one for each of us. Rows for medical costs, school costs, legal exposure, household savings over a 10-year window. A final row labeled outcome. He had been updating it for years. Last edit, 6 days ago. 11 edits total. I photographed every page with the prepaid phone my sister and I were not supposed to have bought from a gas station 2 summers ago, registered under a neighbor's name, hidden in the insulation above the crawlspace door. I closed the files the way I found them and went back to my homework. At dinner, I tried one sentence. Flat voice, like I wasn't sure what I'd seen. Something weird on Dad's laptop. My mother didn't even look up from her plate. You always need there to be a problem, don't you, sweetheart? My father cut his chicken. I ate slowly. In my head, I was doing math. 11 edits. 10-year window. 2 names. They had been running the numbers on us since we were 8 years old. 3 weeks later, I noticed the pill bottle. My mother kept her prescription on the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker, where she could see it every morning. Yellow cap. Her name on the label. She took 1 pill with breakfast, every day, the same way she folded towels on a schedule nobody was allowed to interrupt. That Tuesday, I was unloading the dishwasher, and the bottle was turned sideways. The pills inside were the right color, but they were smaller than the ones in her old bottle in the bathroom upstairs. I checked. Same prescription, Filled 8 months ago, half full. Different size. Different imprint code stamped on each pill. I didn't touch the kitchen bottle. I went upstairs, into my parents' bedroom. My mother's bedside drawer, second one down. The one she always locked but had left cracked open the night before when she took a phone call and forgot. Behind a pack of tissues was a pink contact lens case. I opened it. White powder. Not pills. Powder, fine and clean, crushed smooth. My mother had never worn contact lenses in her life. I took a photo. I put the case back exactly how it was, angle and all. That night, when my sister rotated into the crawl space, I left the iPod for her in the insulation. The old iPod with no internet, the one we wrote notes back and forth on, the only piece of technology in that house my mother hadn't figured out how to read. One photo, no caption. She knew what it meant. 2 weeks later, at Sunday dinner, my mother put down her fork and smiled the way she smiled when neighbors came over. I think we should all sit down as a family next Sunday. An honest conversation about the future. Nothing scary. My father nodded once. He did not look at me. That night, after they went to bed, I stood in front of the kitchen calendar. Next Sunday was circled in red pen. A small, neat number 7 inside the loop. I started flipping pages. 3 other dates, earlier in the year, had the same mark. My cousin Lila's birthday. My cousin Daniel's birthday. My Aunt Rose's baby's birthday. From 1998. Lila died at 11 months. Daniel died at 4 days. Aunt Rose's baby never came home from the hospital. The red circles matched every funeral in our family. The next morning, I tried one more time. I told my mother, in a flat voice, that she seemed tense. Was something going on? She laughed. Easy. Practiced. Don't make a big thing out of a normal conversation, sweetheart. You always do that. I said okay. I cleared my plate. I went to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and counted out loud, under my breath, the days between now and next Sunday. 7. That night, 5 days before the circled Sunday, Claire and I brought every journal up out of the brick wall and laid them open in the crawl space. 14 notebooks. Black marbled covers, spines cracking, pages warped from 15 winters of basement damp. We turned on the flashlight between us and worked the way we used to study for finals. She read out loud from one book. I tracked dates in another. We whispered, because the floor above us was our parents' bedroom. We were looking for a pattern. We found one. Every time one of us had been seriously sick as a kid, ear infections, the bad flu when I was 7, the hospital stay she had at 9, the other sister had been kept out of the house for exactly 7 days. Not 6. Not 10. 7. Our mother's explanation, each time, had been some version of Aunt Jean needs help with the baby or Cousin Matt's visiting from Ohio. We had believed her the way kids believe their mothers. We wrote it down in the journals because that was the rule. Laid side by side now, every one of those weeks lined up the same way. Then Claire stopped reading. She slid the notebook across and put her finger on a page. Mid-paragraph, the handwriting changed. The loops on the letter G got tighter. The slant tipped forward. It was our mother's hand. 3 lines in the middle of an entry neither of us had written. We checked the other 13. 6 of them had the same thing. A single paragraph, a couple of lines, sometimes just a date in the margin. Always in the weeks around one of our illnesses. Always in our mother's loops. She had been inside those notebooks for years. The loose brick had not been secret for a long time. Claire said her own name out loud, her real one, quiet, the way she used to say it when we were little and needed to remember it was still there. I said it back. I want to say it here now. Her name is Claire. That is the only name I am going to use for her from this point on. The next morning, I tried one last test. I waited until my mother was alone at the kitchen sink, drying a pan, and I asked her, evenly, if our family had life insurance policies on me. She did not turn around. Then she laughed the neighbor laugh, warm and bright. Sweetheart, you watch too much television. From the armchair, my father, who had been reading the paper, said without looking up, Is this one of your phases again? I said no. I said I'd just been curious. I took a glass down and poured myself water I did not want. That night, in the crawl space, Claire and I agreed. Asking again would speed up the timeline. They had lied to my face about a policy I had already photographed. The next night, 3 days before the Sunday, Claire and I went back down to the crawl space with a purpose we hadn't had before. We weren't looking for a pattern anymore. We had it. We were building a timeline. All 14 notebooks. Laid open, end to end, across the crawl space floor. I measured once with my foot, heel to toe. 11 feet of journals. 15 years of a life that was never supposed to exist in writing. Claire read the dates out loud. I wrote them on a legal pad next to every switch. Every illness, every settling down week our mother had described to neighbors, every getting worse week our mother had written to herself in the margins. When the list was done, we looked at it together for a long time. We had always told ourselves our parents were two people who made one cruel rule and kept it. That's not what the timeline showed. The timeline showed something slower and colder. Every illness was being weighed. Every good week was being scored. Every bad week was being scored against us. Our whole childhood was a 15-year evaluation of which of us was more useful to keep. I said it out loud because Claire couldn't. They weren't raising two daughters. They were grading us. Claire nodded once. She wrote the sentence in the 15th notebook, the empty one we had started that week. We had laid our own execution plan across the basement floor, and we were reading it for the first time. Then Claire pushed the journals aside and reached past them into a cavity in the mortar we had never known was there. The brick had been sitting a millimeter too far out, the kind of thing you only notice if you've touched it 10,000 times. Behind the space where the journals lived, folded in four, was a piece of cream-colored floral stationery, the same kind our mother used for Christmas cards. The creases were old and crisp, at least 9 years of sitting in the wall. It was a letter, our mother's handwriting, dated 9 years ago, addressed to someone called Dr. R. No last name, just the initial. It thanked Dr. R for understanding our family's unusual situation and confirmed that both girls will continue to be seen privately under separate files. Both girls. Separate files. Someone outside our house had known about Claire for at least 9 years. Somebody with a medical degree and a careful enough mouth to have never said anything to anyone. I photographed the letter. I refolded it along the same creases. I put it back. Someone outside this house had always known there were two of us. The next morning, 2 days before the Sunday, my father was at the office and my mother was at the salon. I had maybe an hour. His laptop was closed this time. I opened it. The projection spreadsheet was still in the same folder. There was a new row. It ran the numbers on the coming Sunday. Scenario A assumed one outcome. Scenario B assumed the other. Dry accountant columns dollars, probabilities, legal exposure. At the end of the new row, in the column he reserved for his own notes, he had typed, outcome B preferred. The policy tied to Claire was the newer one, the bigger one. The public Sophie had the cleaner paper trail 15 years of school records and dental appointments and yearbook photos. If they were going to keep one of us, they were going to keep the one the world already knew existed. I printed the row. 1 page. I folded it, slid it into the waistband of my jeans, and closed the laptop the way I found it. A screen could be argued with. A paper in someone's hand could not. I carried outcome B down to the crawl space and put it on top of the 15th notebook for Claire. Outcome B was Claire. 2 nights before the Sunday, Claire and I sat in the crawl space with the printed outcome B page between us and talked about running. We could not run. Claire had no legal identity, no social security number of her own, no birth certificate she could walk into a DMV with. If we left the house, one of us would travel as a citizen and the other as a ghost in the passenger seat. The first cop, the first landlord, the first hospital intake, she would disappear again, and this time we wouldn't have a house to come back to. We talked about the police. An 18-year-old walking into a precinct on a Saturday to say her parents had forced her and her secret twin to share one identity for 15 years, and were planning to kill the twin the government didn't know existed, on a Sunday, in the basement, without paper already in someone else's hands sounded, even to us, like the kind of story a dispatcher writes down and never sends upstairs. They would ask questions slowly. Slowly was the one thing we did not have. We talked about our Aunt Margaret, 3 states away, 6 Thanksgivings in our lives. Every single one, she had watched our parents the way you watch someone you've already decided not to trust. She was the best we had. We made a plan. The first piece was a digital recorder Claire bought for $20 from a pawn shop, the size of a car key fob. We taped it under the card table with duct tape, pressed flat against the wood grain. You had to be on your knees to see it, and nobody in our family had been on their knees in that basement in 15 years. The second piece was a sealed envelope to Aunt Margaret. Inside, photos of the laptop files, the contact lens case with the powder, the printed outcome B page, 3 representative journal pages in our mother's handwriting, and a copy of the doctor's R letter. A short note from Claire on top, explaining what it was, with our cell number at the bottom and one sentence. If you do not hear from either of us by 9:30 p.m. Sunday, open this and call the number on the first page. We paid cash at a FedEx an hour away, overnight, scheduled for Sunday morning delivery. The third piece was a text scheduled to send at 8:45 p.m. Sunday, from the prepaid phone to the non-emergency police line for our county. It named our parents, our address, and said there was an ongoing situation in the basement that had been documented and sent to family out of state. It asked for a welfare check, not a raid. We were not going to survive the night by accident. Saturday night, our last night, Claire was quiet in the crawlspace for a long time. Then she said, without looking at me, "I'm not going behind the water heater tomorrow." I waited. I'm coming up the stairs. I'm sitting in the fourth chair. I thought about the card table. 3 chairs for 15 years. The fourth one was folded in the furnace room. I had walked past it 10,000 times. My parents had never once set it out. The card table was built for 4. They had always chosen 3. They need to see both of us in the same room, Claire said. Before the recording ends. Or this doesn't count. I looked at her. For the first time in our lives, we were going to be in our parents' eye at the same instant. No rotation, no back room, no ceremony. Whatever they had built this house on was going to break the second she walked down those stairs behind me. I said okay. Tomorrow, they would see both of us, or neither of us. The Sunday came. At 7:45 p.m., Claire went behind the water heater, as she was supposed to. At 7:55, I went down the basement stairs alone, as I was supposed to, in the sweater my mother had laid out for me that afternoon on the bed. 3 chairs at the card table. My mother in her neat blue cardigan, the one she wore to church. My father with a single manila folder closed on his lap. The bare bulb. The water heater hum. My mother smiled the way she smiled at neighbors on the porch and said, "Sit down, sweetheart. We just need to make a small change." She had used that sentence for 15 years. I sat. Under the table, a half-inch from my knee, the recorder was running. I could feel the duct tape along the wood. In my pocket, the prepaid phone had already sent its text at 8:45, quietly, 10 minutes earlier. I looked at my mother and kept my face the way I had kept it at every dinner since the laptop. Flat. Then I said, "Before we start, I think we should wait." My mother's eyes narrowed for the first time. Wait for what? Footsteps on the stairs. Claire came down in her own clothes, not my clothes, not Sophie's clothes. Jeans she had kept in a duffel bag behind the insulation for 2 years. A green sweatshirt I had never seen on the public version of our life. She walked past our father. She sat in the fourth chair, the one that had been folded in the furnace room for 15 years, which Claire had set out herself that afternoon while our parents were at church. My mother's face went through 4 expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, calculation, rage. My father closed the folder in his lap. I said, in the same flat voice my mother had always used on us, "We thought we should both be here for the conversation." Nobody spoke. I reached into the bag at my feet and took out the papers. I put the life insurance policy on the table first. Both names. I put the letter to Dr. R next to it. Both girls. Separate files. I put the outcome B preferred printout next. I put a single journal open to a page our mother had written inside. I put a photograph of the pink contact lens case on top. My father's hand moved toward the papers. I put my hand on top of his. "You don't get to pick which ones are real anymore," my mother said, very quickly. "Sweetheart, you're making this into something it isn't." Claire opened the first of the 14 journals, the one from when we were 6 years old, and read the first line out loud, in a voice that was not angry and not scared. "Today, Mom said only one of us is real. We are 6. Claire looked up. "We photographed everything," she said. "It already left the house." Outside, the first car door closed. My mother's head turned toward the stairs. Her face changed again, the neighbor face, automatic, already reaching for the voice. The doorbell. She rose halfway. "I'll get it. It's nothing. We're just..." From the top of the stairs, a voice none of us had heard in this house in 2 years. "Sit down." Aunt Margaret. 6 hours of highway in her shoes. Behind her, the heavy step of 2 county officers who had been dispatched from a welfare check text at 8:45. My mother tried the smile. "Margaret, honey, we're just having a family talk. It's..." Aunt Margaret did not move. "Come up here," she said. "Both of them." My mother finally heard the word both. My parents were questioned in the driveway that night and booked at the county building by 2 in the morning. The charges expanded within the week. The lab came back on the contact lens case, a second medication, not prescribed to either of them, crushable and fatal at the right dose. Dr. R was identified from the prescription bottle and opened into a separate investigation by the state medical board. Claire and I went home with Aunt Margaret that Sunday night, in the back seat of a car that smelled like highway coffee, and we stayed. 3 months later, Claire walked into a county office with a lawyer, Aunt Margaret, and a folder of evidence, and walked out with a birth certificate in her own name, the name from the journals, the name I had finally said out loud in a crawl space in March. She registered for school under it. She got a social security number. She votes under it now. 2 licenses. 2 faces that look alike and belong to 2 people the state finally agrees exist. The 14th notebook is the last one we shared. We kept the 15th for a while, then stopped. We have our own notebooks now, in our own handwriting, and nobody edits the margins. The new owners of the house repaired the loose brick. The card table went to the curb. The 4th chair sits at Aunt Margaret's dining room table, where it was always supposed to be. My parents said they could only have one daughter. They were wrong about that, and about a lot of other things.